Hey guys, it's Hunt for Games, and this week I'm continuing along my run of appreciation for the Final Fantasy XI artifact gear, now with Monk and Warrior. This week will be a little different because I only ever actually leveled Monk out of these two jobs, but in Final Fantasy XI you're never oblivious to the other jobs around you, and Warrior's artifact gear was pretty memorable. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the artifact gear for these two jobs and where they rank among your favorite sets, but for now, let's get right into it. Warrior was that job that I frankly hated. I couldn't stand it. It was easy to hate. As a Tarantara, it was almost impossible to argue the advantage of playing it for like any stat bonus that you had, and I frankly I couldn't get into it. Warrior's largest advantage was its flexibility with weapon types, but that didn't really appeal to me in a game in Final Fantasy XI. I liked having big cool spells and flashy effects, and Thief had sneak attack and trick attack, which is so unique, and Samurai had meditate, and Warrior just didn't seem to be any of that, but it was highly desired for a lot of content. When the trend was to sub ninja wherever possible and burn parties were all the rage during Honor Gone, Warrior easily adapted to dual-wielding axes and was highly effective while maintaining a decent survivability if it stole hate. When Sub Samurai became more popular with the Hasso and Saigon changes, Warrior could utilize that as well with its far better skill in Great Axe. So it was a popular, well-liked job that got invites to all sorts of content. With me as like a Dragoon or Thief or Summoner trying to get involved, it felt a lot like being the last kid picked for dodgeball. So screw you, Warrior, and your wide variety of skills. But moving on, the reason we're here, the artifact gear. Luckily, Warrior got totally screwed in this area. Screw you, Warrior. I can't speak to the quests themselves because I never did them, but I can at least discuss the coffers and how awful each of the pieces were. Except, of course, the boots. The boots were a case of, wow, that doesn't seem fair, as they provided enhanced double attack. Enhanced double attack was one of those rare enhancements that it increases the chance of double attack occurring, which would provide more damage from the additional attacks and more TP from the additional attacks. It was comparable to haste and frankly way cooler for the times it would proc on weapon skill. Debates raged for years on the benefits of plus dual wield versus plus double attack versus plus haste, and mostly came down to how much can you get of each without going over the individual caps. But long story short is you probably wore these boots for a while if you're a warrior. That's about it though. I mean, most of the remaining gear was focused around the idea of Warrior being a tank, which it wasn't. While a war geared for tanking playing with a party willing to try would probably do decently, the Final Fantasy XI community usually refused to deal with such nonsense past like level 30 or so. But Square Enix's original intent for Warrior was that it would be a tank. In fact, it was supposed to be a tank instead of Ninja. Ninja wasn't supposed to be a tank. I mean, Warrior is the job that gets provoked. Now, I've done some weird party makeups that have been super successful, so it's unfortunate that the community can be so rigid sometimes, but that's the way it is, and once they decide that Warrior was a better damage dealer than was a tank, that was it. But back to the artifact. The gloves, for instance, offered plus 4 strength, which, isn't bad for weapon skills, and plus 10 sealed skill, which would be awesome if a warrior ever used a shield. And then, dun dun dun, 3 enmity, and so it begins with the issues with the warrior artifact, plus enmity on every piece. Plus enmity is only useful if you're tanking. Its only purpose is to increase the chances that the monster is going to be more pissed at you with every little action you do. Otherwise, it just makes it practically impossible for the tank to hold on to hate on their own. I mean, they're usually struggling anyways against a well-geared warrior doing a lot of damage. The artifact's not that easy to get either, with a coffer key from LDM Necropolis, which, if you didn't hear me rant about it, my frustrations with that hellhole in the Black Mage and Red Mage artifact video, it's just terrible. It's the worst. You also have the Castle's Valbailey's key, which is just irritating. But I mean, it all rounds out a bit with the Crawler's Nest coffer key, which you may just already have in your inventory. Seriously, you leveled there all the time. But let's get back to a quick rundown of the actual stats on the gear. The head is, I don't know, whatever, 3 decks. I mean, come on. It's also got plus enmity, so no thanks. Anything else, please. The pants would be decent with the plus 3 accuracy if it wasn't for the plus 2 enmity on them. But I'm betting a good many wore them anyway, and just kind of hoped they'd get away with it. Accuracy is always good, and usually pants are a pretty weak area for all jobs. That body though was just a turd cherry on top with some vitality and a solid plus 8 enmity, ensuring without a doubt that you could just never wear it in a party for any reason. Which is funny looking back because I totally remember a few warriors wearing full artifact in parties with another tank. I mean, probably why there were such miserable parties. Don't worry though, because at least it was some of the coolest looking. I mean, the gloves are pretty sweet, right? The gear really shows off the abs, I guess. I hated it. I hated the styling. It was like the worst artifact. I think it might be ranked for me as the worst. Let me know in the comments if you liked it, but honestly, I feel like I've got the majority on this one. I feel like everybody I knew thought it was awful. But moving on to the job that let me have this hilarious thumbnail, my beloved Monk, which never really lived up to the hype that I built in my mind. I heard all these fantastical stories of Azure and Fist Monk, and the backflip for Taros, the insane counter rates, boosting for 3 minutes to fire off a ridiculous Chi Blast. I mean, these things were all true, but when I finally hit 75, it was just sort of not as fun to do as I'd hoped it would be. Regardless, the AF was pretty sweet, so let's get into it. First, as far as golfers go, Monk really didn't do too bad, which is good news because Monk wanted all the pieces. The gloves were a Nest coffer key, which again, you probably just had lying around from leveling. The crown was Garlage, which indeed is pretty terrible and annoying, but I still think far better than LDM Necropolis. I mean, there was usually a party at the gate to open it up for you. It wasn't until the population started to die down that, that was really starting to become a problem. And at that point, you could use the go to the pass trick to kind of like sneak behind the doors. Finally, the last coffer was in Bedeau, which, I mean, we've all talked about how much we just hated Bedeau, but it wasn't really bad for coffers. It was just annoying and stupid. But how about the gear? So, for better or worse, Monk's gear was like all swap-in pieces, but they were good. They were almost required, and at least you got to use them, but you wouldn't be wearing them at all full time. So the boots had 3 decks and enhanced dodge with an additional 10 evasion, which is pretty sweet, and could be argued for a full-time equipped status if you didn't have the Fumakayan or any of those kick attack boosting shoes. Otherwise, swap in for dodge. The gloves had +4 strength, which is, not the worst unless you had like a Chudo's Kote, which are way better, but they also enhanced boost. Swap them in for another 5.5% attack bonus and increased Chi Blast damage as well. The crown had Mind, which I guess for Chi Blast, yay, but also enhanced Focus, which is another 10 accuracy when Focus was used. Considering that's a 2-minute long ability, that's no joke. That's another 10 accuracy for 2 minutes for Monk. The body had 5 accuracy, which actually is pretty decent. I'm not selling it short, but anyone serious about Monk would probably have saved up for the Scorpion Harness at some point. It was a decent replacement though if you couldn't get it immediately. Also, enhances chakra. I mean, who doesn't love a boost to some self-healing? Ironically, the legs are the only piece that had to be worn full-time for a benefit, with +10 to guarding skill, a super underappreciated skill that usually only career monks had leveled, and +1 counter. Luckily or unluckily, there really wasn't much else to wear for pants for a long time, and honestly, I'd take my hit to attack or other stats just to not wear Subligar anymore. But you might have gotten a bit of the gist here. Most of these pieces were amazing for swapping in to use with an ability, but otherwise, probably wouldn't be worn. Honestly though, looking at most artifact sets, it's still way more useful than most jobs got. Anyways guys, that's it for Monk and Warrior. Let me know your thoughts on their artifact gear and whether or not it was worth the trouble of hunting down those coffers and quests. Like the video if you ever tried to set up a Chi Blast gear set for that one time you'd be asked to do it against sky bosses, and let me know which jobs you want to see next. P.S. A lot of people have been asking for a puppy status, and I know I've been a bit behind on that. Here's a few pics that are sliding around the screen to tide you over. He's getting so big, and he's awesome. I'll probably have a pup level video coming out soon, but it's been super busy and haven't really gotten around to it. So I'll see you guys next week. As always guys, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, you should totally think about subscribing. I've got videos coming out twice a week, and if you like this one, there's at least a chance you'll like some of the others that are very similar to this, so live dangerously. Let me know what you guys thought about the video in the comments and other videos you'd like to see. And finally, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Huntin for Games to keep up with all the latest stuff. See ya!